In this video, we're going to talk about how to create an Excel table. What we've been working on is just what we call a normal range in Excel. So you just put your data in the cells, but there's no real structure to it, whereas a table is going to provide a formal structure, and then it gives us some advantage, some special tools that we can use. Some of them are listed in this text box. The sorting and filtering tools will automatically be built into the table. It'll format it with banded rows and columns. We can insert total rows and calculated fills, and then we can name things much easier using table names. And so it just has some advantages over a normal range. So now, how do you create a table? There's a couple ways. Under the insert ribbon is insert table. Just click anywhere in your data, and when you hit that, it's going to guess what the area of your table is because you don't have any blank rows or columns. And the fact that it has headers, you can choose that checkbox or not. And when you hit OK, now you can see the banded rows of this table. And you also notice it has its own ribbon called Table Design right here. And we'll talk about some of those features in a second. For now, I'm going to hit Control Z and undo creating that table just to demonstrate the second way to do that. So what we just did was insert table. On the home ribbon, you have format as table. So the same idea, click anywhere in the table. And now you have a whole list of different table styles, and some get pretty dark and bold. So if I click on that and hit OK, so there's what that would look like. I think I'll Control Z again, and we'll just go with a little much lighter style, or I'll just go back to Insert Table. And there we go. So now we're back to a table, and that table style, if you want to do this after the fact, here are all the same colors that we looked at on the home ribbon. So you can choose to change it later and make it anything you want. Okay, so now I'm going to do something a little lighter so it's easier to see. There we go. It's a table. How do I know it's a table? Well, when you click in it, you end up with this ribbon called Table Design. Whereas if you were to click in a normal range of data, that of course won't be there. Once you're in this Table Design ribbon, you can see some of the features. One of them is we're going to want to name this table. So I'm just going to call it Employees for now and hit the Enter key. But you can do a first column, some kind of banding, or you can make banded columns. I think with the style I've chosen, all that's doing is adding borders. If I were to choose a different style, let's try this one. Maybe the banded columns would actually choose colors instead of just the border style. So some of these you'll have to play with it a little bit. The first column is just making everything bold. The last column's making everything bold. The filter buttons are on automatically with your table. You can choose to not have those be there, but they work the same way as with a range. The same criteria filters, or you can select the various check boxes. And the last thing I'll show you is the total row. So it adds a total row, and what's kind of nice about that is down here I can say I want to find out what the average, the sum, max, min, count. I'll just take the average base salary, but it will change, that value will change based on the filters we put on. So for instance, if I only want to see the total or the average base salary for Boston, I would filter the data on Boston and go down to this total row, and now I would see that number based on the filters that I have. So I am going to clear that filter. You can turn on or off that total row, and it will work for any of the columns. Of course, you have to kind of choose, right? So if we're choosing the state, average wouldn't make sense, but you could count how many. I want to count how many people are for offices are from Dallas, or employees are from Dallas, I should say. So now I got 76 by doing a count on that field. So you can turn off the total row, by the way. If you decide you don't need it or it's not adding any value, you can turn that off. So again, I'm going to clear my filters, and you can also go to the data ribbon to clear filters just like we had with a range. And I will go and get rid of the banded columns. I don't think that's very helpful. The other thing I want to mention is we, in a previous video, talked about freeze panes. Well, notice as I scroll down through the data, the heading, the column headings become part of the spreadsheet, if you will, so that they're there automatically without automatically freezing panes. Now, one of the advantages of a table is the ability to insert and delete records, and it'll automatically fix all the formatting for us. So in other words, if I were to go to the home ribbon and right here just insert a sheet row, well, it made that row white, but it made all the other rows, the next row down blue. And so now I can sit there and add a record right here. The same would be true if I were to delete. So if I right click and hit delete, again, it's going to delete a row, but it'll automatically ban the rest of the rows appropriately without you having to go through all of that formatting rigmarole. If at the very bottom of the table, so row 538, I wanted to add a brand new record, all I have to do is go here and hit the tab key, and it's smart enough not to go to the next cell over, but actually down to the beginning. And so now I can just type anything 920, and I can put in any name. I'll go with Jody Smith, and then whatever the department is. Anyway, notice I just hit the tab, and I can sit there and type all the way across this. And when I get to the end and hit tab, it knows to go down to the next row and let me keep typing. And so I don't have to sit there and click over at the beginning anymore to add new records. So now I'll delete those two records, and our table will shrink up automatically. Delete. And now we're back to just having Brian Williams being the last record in our table. Another advantage to our table, we're going to add a calculated field up here at the very top, and it's just going to be like the total salary, we'll call it. And it's basically the base salary plus bonus plus commission. And if I put that way over here and hit enter, it automatically adds that to the table. So it extended the formatting, it added that. And now notice when I put in a formula, I'm going to hit the equal sign, just like always. But when I click on the word base salary, it puts in a special. It doesn't just say H5. It puts in an @ symbol, meaning I'm working on that row. And I'm going to add that to the bonus. And I'm going to add that to the commission. And so that's what your formulas look like now. So they're a little more descriptive than simply H5 plus I5 plus J5. It's kind of like dealing with named ranges in a way. And so now when I hit enter, I don't have to autofill that formula down. The table knows automatically to put that formula down to the bottom of the table. Another advantage of using tables is I can refer to columns and the table itself by using the column heading names and the name that we gave the table. So remember earlier in this video I called this table employees. Well, away from the table, way over here, I'm just going to do a sum function, parenthesis, and I'm going to type employees, and I only have to type EM and it pop up. That's the table indicator, so I'm just going to hit the tab key. And now if I type a square bracket, it shows me all of the columns in the table. And so now I can say I want to sum the base salary, square bracket, and I can close that up. And so now I have the sum of the base salary for the employees table. So I'm going to delete that formula and show you the last thing is if you want to get rid of a table, or if you don't want your data to be in a table anymore, all you have to do is go to the table design, and right here is convert to range. And so that will remove this table designator. This little ribbon will go away. It will actually keep the banding. So I've done that before where I needed to have banded rows, and it was just quicker to create the table and then convert it back again. But it kept all of the banding. So if I say convert to range and you just say yes, and that'll be gone. Your formula will now say H6 plus I6 plus J6 or 5 if I were to click this cell. You've lost some of that structured reference, but it did keep the banding. Not very often you need to convert a table back to a range. The one time is if you ever want to do a subtotal, use the subtotal feature. For some reason you can't do that when it's part of a table. So real quick I'll just make it a table again, and when I run to the data ribbon, notice subtotal is now grayed out, and that's because it's a table. And by the way, how do you tell it's a table? I want to emphasize this again. The only way really to tell is by clicking on a cell and then looking up in the ribbon and seeing that you have a table design ribbon that you wouldn't have if it was a normal range. So that's how you tell if it's a table.